Hi, bestie. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome or welcome back to the Best Friend Book Club podcast. I'm Sarah, and I am so happy you made it because today we're going to be diving into all of the things that I found suspicious about A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. If you're interested, stay tuned. If you want access to all of the written versions of the summaries, the theories, and you want early access to the episodes, make sure to check out the Patreon. It's patreon.com/bestfriendbookclubpodcast. Let's jump right in. Really quick, I'm feeling a little under the weather, but fine enough to record, obviously. So just bear with me if I sound a little crazy sometimes. I want to keep track of all of the times that we see Feyre's power throughout the book. So the first time we're seeing it is in Part 1, Princess of Carrion, Chapter 1. So when she uses her powers to burn the paintbrush, so she snaps the paintbrush in half that she's using, she burns it, and then also uses power to have wind take it out of the room and bring in the scent of the garden. I just want to compare how many times she's using her powers in Mist and Fury versus Wings and Ruin and like what that power looks like. As you may or may not know, I love Lucian. So there's this part when Lucian asks Feyre, where is he keeping her? And she knows that he's talking about Elaine. And she's like, I don't know. She says, Rhysand has 100 places where they could be, but I doubt he'd use any of them to hide Elaine, knowing that I'm aware of them. And Lucian's response is, tell me anyway. List all of them. I love this man so much. I literally cannot wait to get his book because the way that he's like, I don't care, I will check all of them. Like, he's like down so bad because that's his mate. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. In this very first chapter, Feyre says that Ianthe's circlet jewel that she wears on her forehead looks like a siphon. Now, I don't know if this was because it's just foreshadowing, like, oh, hey, that kind of looks like a siphon, and then what ends up happening later, or if the jewel holds any kind of power that is similar to the siphon. Already, the second time that we're seeing Feyre's powers, she gets upset when she remembers that Tamlin sold them out to Hybern. I mean, rightfully so. Her mouth fills with smoke, and then she has to use frost to will that away, which is just such an interesting use of her powers, but we will come back to that. I really start to feel bad for Tamlin at this point in time. I get what's happening. I get why she's doing what she's doing. However, I just feel bad for him. So Feyre says, her first step, make Tamlin believe, truly believed, that she loved him and the Spring Court and everyone in it so that he would not suspect when she turned them on each other. And I'm just like, okay, hear me out. So he fully, thinks he's in love with her, proposes to her, is about to marry her. And then Rhys takes her away. She says she doesn't want to come back. He agrees with Hybern to let them use his lands so that he can get Feyre back, thinking that she's under some kind of spell from Rhys. And he's doing what he thinks is best. And then he finally gets her back, and she's trying to convince him that she loves him when he knows she's mated to Rhys. And it's just, I just feel bad for him, okay? The third time we're seeing Feyre use her magic, she uses Night-Kissed power to basically feel for Brenna and Dagden's mind tricks. Okay, so she says she uses it like a net to cast around to see if they're trying to get into Tamlin and Lucian's minds. And she's trying to cast a net around them and protect them with this Night-Kissed power that she has. And then immediately, the next time, this is the fourth time she's using her power, Feyre uses Helion's magic to see if she can detect any tangles or spells around the house, but she's only able to feel the wards of the Springcourt Manor. So already, this is just chapter 3. She's already used her powers 4 different times, and we're seeing so many different variations of her power. It's not just her using the same thing over and over again. So Lucian says that there's 3 holes in the wall in the Springcourt, and 1 off the coast, which we already knew about the one off the coast because that's how they got there in A Court of Mist and Fury. And then Dagden's like, well, the continent surely has a spot as well, but we do not know that for sure. Lucien tells Feyre that he would have been part of the Human-Fae alliance, and he reminds her that everything he did with Hybern was for her. Like, again, Lucien, the same as Tamlin, thinks that they're doing what is best for Feyre. Rhys has painted this picture that he's this evil person, and they think they're rescuing her. So, like, cut him some slack, please. And then Feyre is talking about Brenna and Dagden, and then it says she was starting to wonder if the two of them perhaps preferred no one's company but each other's in whatever unholy capacity. It's giving Lannisters. It's giving the Lannisters. Cersei. Is it Cersei and Jaime? But it's giving brother-sister kind of love. And that's honestly kind of crazy that was just kind of thrown in there. So this is going to connect to what's been said from the beginning with the ACOTAR Theories episode, and I'm sure it was mentioned again in the Mist and Fury Theories episode, but how is Lucien as powerful as he is? So when Calanmai comes around, Tamlin refuses to participate in the Great Rite, and Lucien takes his spot. How is Lucien as powerful as a High Lord so that he can perform the rite for spring? And also, how can he perform the rite for spring when he's from autumn, but really his dad's day? It's day, right? Yes. So I just find it interesting that Tamlin refuses to participate, and now Lucien can take his spot. Does that mean that anyone can take the High Lord spot, or is it because Lucien is super powerful? I do think Lucien has more power than we've seen. Lucien tells Feyre that she is a better friend to him than he ever was to her, and I completely disagree. I think he was a good friend to her. He was still a good friend to Tamlin because he knew him longer. That was his High Lord. But Lucien did a lot for Feyre, and him saying, like, you're a better friend to me than I ever was to you. And meanwhile, here's Feyre using him to get what she wants is just like, I don't know. I just didn't love that. So the fifth time that Feyre is using her power is going to be when she uses the light of day on Solstice to make herself glow. And she also makes Lucien glow. And this is when he kneels before her. I'm obsessed with this scene. And I really want to try to find the artwork that I was talking about in the last episode, but there's just one piece of artwork that, like, it just looks so perfect in the way that he's kneeling. Ugh. Love. And then when Feyre was talking to Tamlin and she was like, will you dance with me? And it says that relief, happiness, and a slight edge of concern, like, passed across his face. And then it says, yes, he breathed. Yes, of course. This poor bastard. Like, I feel like he is, like, begging for scraps and she's giving them to him, but in order to manipulate him. And she's doing all this and then she ends up doing the thing in a second that we'll get to with Lucien. I just have a hard time with this because, yes, I get it. Like, Tamlin did a lot of bad things. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but it just feels like kicking a man while he's down. I don't know. Talking about Lucien's not a good friend. So when Feyre knocks on Lucien's door, he answers on the second knock. Her knuckles touch that door a second time. Door's already open. And he says, I heard you. What's wrong? Okay. Love that. Then he's, like, scanning her with his, like, mechanical eye. And he notes the disheveled hair, sweaty nightgown, blah, blah, blah. Right? Then the next time that she uses her power is to sense if Tamlin's coming through the house. She also puts this, like, bubble around her and Lucien. So this is, again, her manipulating Lucien to get what she wants. And she's using him the way he's holding her while she's crying and he's apologizing for everything that she's gone through. Like, he's such a good fucking friend. I can't. And then basically Feyre did this because she says that she's trying to prey on what Tamlin had feared from her first days there. You can tell throughout A Court of Thorns and Roses that, like, Tamlin's a little jelly belly of the relationship that Lucien and Feyre have, and he should have been because they had a close friendship, and that's something that Tamlin and Feyre never had. They had a relationship, but I don't think that they had a friendship. And then also Feyre had said that Lucien had knelt before her, swearing fealty to a newborn god. Now, calling herself a newborn god is very interesting because this is also something we see in Throne of Glass, where a certain character calls himself a god as well. And I just think that it's got to be important. Again, talking about Lucien's not a good friend to Feyre, it drives me crazy because I do think that he is a good friend to her, and I don't think she's a great friend to him. But basically, Lucien's telling her that he went to the day court to try to see if they could break bargains because he was trying to break the bargain between Rhys and Feyre. I'm pretty sure he was sent there by Tamlin, but he went with the intention of trying to free his friend from what he thought was a bad situation. I just want to point this out for when we inevitably get a Lucien scene, but Brenna was talking about how Autumn Court males have fire in their blood and they fuck like it too. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what Lucien's got going on because that, yes, absolutely yes. Then we have the 7th time that Feyre uses her power. She tells the children of the blessed, she goes into their minds, tells them to get on a boat, flee the continent, that whole thing. But she is using her Daemati powers there. I probably sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I don't care at this point. So when Lucien and Feyre are getting scolded by Tamlin for releasing the Bogue on the twins, Lucien stands up for Feyre. And he's like, she gave them an order as, their lady or whatever. He was like, she gave them an order. They didn't listen. They can't walk all over her. And then Tamlin's like, get out. Just get out, Lucien. And I really feel like, and I said it in the last episode, but I do feel like Feyre was baiting Tamlin here. She literally says, you might be willing to get on your knees for Hybern, but I certainly am not. And that's when he explodes. Lucien comes in. Lucien completely stops talking to Tamlin when this happens and won't even acknowledge his presence at dinner after he completely explodes on Feyre. So I just feel like he has Feyre's back. I mean, especially now, knowing that he's mated to Feyre's sister, I guess you can make that argument. That's why he's being so nice to her. But I do feel like he's starting to see the real side of Tamlin, or I guess just a different side of him that he did not see that Feyre was getting. I don't know. Okay, so this whole thing that happens with Ianthe and how she orchestrated this whole attack for the Naga to come in, she stole the keys, put the guard to sleep, that whole thing. Feyre is literally like, I goaded her into it. I pushed and pushed her to reveal just what a snake she was. How little anyone without a title meant to her. And it's like, I get what she's doing, but it's like she's being so manipulative. And at this point, the people that are suffering from it are now the sentries, like Tamlin's sentries, the one that he has to now whip in front of everybody because Ianthe put him up to this, but Feyre put Ianthe up to it technically. I don't know. And then when she had how do I say this? So she had put into the sentry's mind everything that happened, but purposely kept it coiled up until the last moment where he finally comes out and says it was Ianthe, she was the one that did this. It feels icky to me. So Bronn and Hart, which are 2 sentries, apologize to Feyre for not stopping Tamlin when he was exploding, basically. What I want to know is, where were Bronn and Hart? Because when Lucien tells Feyre that he had destroyed the whole manor and he killed everyone that was on duty, I figured that would include Bronn and Hart, but I don't know. Obviously not, because they're talking to her here. But I'm just like, did he kill everyone that was working at the manor at that time? Did he kill everyone that went with Lucien? Because Lucien went with Bronn and Hart, if I remember correctly. So I'm just trying to piece all that together. Dagden says that the hole in the wall, the different holes that they have in the wall, is because someone or something of great power passed through it in that spot. So do we have any theories as to who or what could have passed through the wall to create these holes. I would think something or someone as powerful as Amryn or Nesta when she comes out of the cauldron. I just thought that was super interesting that he was like, it's because something of great power passed through. Well, what could that possibly be? So she's getting ready to leave and she's going to put in the sentries' minds like why she left or what she wants people to think is the reason she left, but it won't uncoil until she's gone. I just hate how manipulative she is at the beginning of this book. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel like Feyre. Maybe I'm wrong. So when Feyre goes into Ianthe's mind, she says it was, quote, a mask over a face of decay. I wonder what that could mean in terms of, is Ianthe, or was, but is Ianthe some type of other being? Or is she just saying like she's rotted on the inside because she's a freaking bitch and she's got this pretty face? I don't know if that like meant something or if I was just kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, essentially. So when Lucien and Feyre are fighting Dagden and Brenna, it says a tremor shuddered through the clearing like some thread between the twins had been snipped as Brenna's dark head thudded onto the grass. So when they kill Brenna, it says that some thread between them snipped. Is it a possibility that the twins were mates? Or is it more just like they're twins so they have this bond type of thing? I was just like, some thread between them. Are they mated and they're twins? I don't know. I just found that interesting. Moving into part 2, Lucien tells Feyre that he knew she was lying the moment that she unleashed that light in Hybern. He said that he has a friend at the Dawn Court with the same power. Her light was identical. And he said, it does not do whatever horseshit you lied about it doing. So he knew she was lying and chose not to say anything. And he didn't tell Tamlin because he said it felt like kicking a male while he's down. He also didn't want Feyre to stop him from seeing Elain again, which valid because I guess she could do that. I thought this was so interesting and I really want your opinion on this. So it said that so this is in chapter 12. It says, as Eris's livid face emerged from my net of flame, glowing like a new forged god of wrath, Lucien and I brought down the cave ceiling. So this is when they're trying to escape from Eris and the other two brothers, which I'm pretty sure we still don't have names for. I don't know why that's bothering me, but like I feel like they should have been named at some point. But to describe Eris as a god of wrath is such an interesting choice of words. Could it mean something for the future, or is it just saying that he looks pissed off? I don't know. I really don't know if I'm just like reading too much into things or if it actually means something. Spoiler alert, I have a soft spot for Lucien. Like, I'm sure we have been over this several times. But so when he's with Feyre in the Winter Court and he genuinely thinks that they're going to die, he asks Feyre to tell him about Elain. Like, he just wants to know about his mate. And then this is when she tells him Elain would put on a hat and gloves and kneel in the dirt, weeding. She acted like a purebred lady in every regard but that. So I think that is part of the reason that Lucien gets Elain the gift that he does, the enchanted gloves for Solstice. I think that's why he gets her that, because one of the few things that he knows about her is that she loves to garden. And he knew that about her before he really sat with her and like got to know her. And I just thought, I don't know, maybe that was the connection there. And then, let's see, it says proof that Feyre is not doing things for Lucien out of the kindness of her heart, but instead to get back at Tamlin. So when she's talking about offering Lucien a place in her court, she says it's mostly for Elain to have her mate close by. But she says, some small, horrible part of me enjoyed the thought of taking one more thing away from Tamlin. Something vital, something essential. So she's like, yeah, I'm really just doing this. Not just doing it, but she's mostly doing it for Elain and also doing it so that she can get back at Tamlin. And it's using Lucien. So Feyre didn't find out Lucien's family name until this point in time when Cassian and Azrael come to save them, and his family name is Vansera. Now, I don't really think it matters because in the long run, that's not his actual family name. Like, his dad isn't, what's his name? Baron? I think his dad isn't Baron, so it doesn't really matter, but he's like, I don't use that name anyways. But then I think that means that Rhys also has a family name and Tamlin also has a family name and everyone has a family name. They just don't use it like that. So I'm really interested to find out eventually, if we do, what Rhys's family name is. So when Lucian's introduced to Amren, he is introduced with his family name and he's like, I don't use that, right? Do we think that he doesn't use it because Baron's an asshole, or do we think that Lucian knows that Baron's not his father? Like, is there any way for Lucian to know that Baron's not his actual dad? He looks different from his siblings, and obviously not that different. But do we think that that's a possibility, and that's why he doesn't use it, or just because he doesn't fuck with them? I have a really hard time with Rhys and Feyre throughout this book, and then in Frost and Starlight, I really start to dislike them. However, Rhys and Feyre are having this conversation about, like, where was he? Why wasn't he the one to come save her? And why did he send Cassian and Azrael instead? And she basically has to pull the information out of him, but he says that he was at the Human Queen Palace. And I feel like the thing that she didn't like about Tamlin, or one of the many things she didn't like about Tamlin, was that he did not tell her things. He kept things from her. He kind of just kept her in this box. Rhys does the same thing to her. Rhys keeps secrets. I mean, I'll point it out throughout the rest of this, but several secrets throughout this and Silver Flames, not just from Feyre, from everyone. And I just feel like Feyre really has to put in work to get answers out of him. And I don't think that that's how it should be as, her mate, but what do I know? So when Feyre and Rhys are telling Lucien a little bit about Velaris, Elaine's safe here, Lucien brings up the Dawn Court, and he says that the Dawn Court cities are not as lovely as Velaris. I want to know how much time he spent in the Dawn Court and why he spends so much time there, because he brings up the Dawn Court a lot. So I'm just kind of curious as to, like, what that connection is. And I want to count how many times that Nesta is referred to as a queen or has queen-like abilities, or she carries herself like a queen or whatever, but like, it's mentioned a lot. So the first time in this book, it says she looked over Cassian as if she were a queen on a throne. So the only reason that I want to point it out is because it's like, that seems so insignificant. It's like, okay, like that makes sense. That description makes sense. But in the long term of, like, it being mentioned so many times, she's going to be queen of something. I believe the first time it's mentioned ever is in chapter 24 of Mist and Fury. So we'll call this the second time that it's mentioned, because we have a lot of them throughout Silver Flames. When the Book of Breathings starts talking to Feyre, it calls her first a sweet-faced liar, and then it calls her princess. And I just thought that those were two very interesting things to call her. When Rhys is telling Feyre the story of Miriam and Dracon and how Miriam fully died and was resurrected, they're talking about an object made by the cauldron, and he used the item to resurrect her, right? I want to know what this item is, and I believe that it's the fourth item from the trove. So in A Court of Silver Flames, when Nesta's scrying and she's looking for the trove, she says that there's 4 items. That fourth one is kind of like in shadow, and it's some type of bone. That's like all she knows about it, but it's the mask, the harp, and the crown, right? Yes. She sees those 3 things, and then she sees the fourth thing that's like in shadow. I think that fourth thing, that Miriam and Dracon have it, and that they have some kind of spell around it, and that's why she can't fully see it. But I think that's the item that was used to resurrect her. So when Amren says that the reason her eyes glow is because it's the only thing that the containment spell couldn't get right, it makes me think of Nesta and how her eyes glow And I'm thinking, there was something in the cauldron that Nesta took, and there was some kind of containment spell used for that to be contained, like the power of death to be contained within her? Am I crazy? But I just feel like maybe that could be something. And then in this same conversation, Amryn is speaking to Nesta, and she says, when you erupt, girl, make sure it is felt across worlds. Now, that is a very interesting choice of words. I feel like that has to be intentional. Across worlds? Come on now. So this kind of confused me. When they're talking about the High Lord meeting, they're told that there's going to be a binding spell that forces everyone into a ceasefire. And if anyone breaks it, the magic will demand a steep cost, probably their life. And Tamlin wouldn't be stupid enough to attack the Night Court or for them to attack Tamlin. Now, I want to know how Azriel was able to attack Eris, and then Pharaoh's able to attack Baron. So in reading through it again, I think that the containment spell is on magic. You cannot use magic against someone else. And Azriel is physically harming Eris. Like, he's beating the shit out of him. He's not using any kind of magic. But Feyre uses magic to attack Baron. But the magic didn't demand the cost of her life. Like, can we talk about that, please? Because what do you mean it'll demand a steep cost, but then she breaks that binding spell somehow? I don't know. I don't know why this is so fascinating to me or why I feel the need to point this out. However, everyone, their scent is described. And so Azrael's is described as night-chilled mist and cedar. Let's do with that information whatever we will, but I just needed to point that out because I've been pointing out what everyone else is described to smell like. When they're talking about books and libraries when the wall was built, it said that scholars winnowed books out. Where did those books get winnowed to? Did they get winnowed, like, out of the continent, out of the human realm? Did they get winnowed into, like, all of the libraries that they have at dawn or day? I don't know. When Feyre is talking to Rhys about how humans don't have magic, his response is, some do. Usually the ones who can claim distant Fey ancestry, but some of those spells don't require magic from the wielder, only the right words or use of ingredients. You can't tell me that their mother wasn't Fey. All of the Archeron sisters definitely have some type of Fey lineage, because I just don't believe that they have the amount of power that they do have without already having some kind of baseline for it. Like, if they were just humans turned Fey, why are they turned into high Fey with the powers of a seer or the power of death? Like, they're so powerful. There's no way they didn't have magic to begin with. This happens a few times, but Rhys is able to winnow inside the library after he says that it's warded, but then he says that the library makes its own rules. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a slip up in the storytelling, but it feels like, okay, there's these words around the meeting. You can't use magic. Feyre uses magic, no consequences. Okay, then you cannot winnow when you're inside the library, and Rhys is able to winnow away from Feyre, and he's like, oh, I guess the library makes its own rules. That doesn't sound right. There's going to be one later on too, I think. So when they're talking about the prison, it's said that Cassian knows more about the Carver than anyone else because he's fascinated with the prison inmates. Now, I think that could kind of lead into the theory that Nest is going to be like the queen of the Dawn Court and ultimately the prison, and him being her mate. But we will get to him being her mate when we talk about Silver Flames. So when they're talking about the old gods and how life was before the High Lords took over, it says that the old gods ruled the rivers, forests, and mountains, and then magic shifted to the High Fae, and then it says, quote, who brought the cauldron and mother along with them. Brought them from where? Where could they have brought the cauldron and the mother from? hello? Like, what? And it said at this point also that the bone carver was an old god, which I think is a connection to Throne of Glass, which we will get to when I have the evidence in the Throne of Glass episode. So we're going to have to wait till the Throne of Glass episode to put that information in there. But when the bone carver is telling Cassian about how the sea whispered about Nesta, this is the third time she's called a queen. So the bone carver says how lovely she is, new as a fawn and yet ancient as the sea, how she calls to you. And then he says, a queen, as my sister once was, terrible and proud, beautiful as a winter sunrise. So now the bone carver is saying she's a queen like the weaver was, which and the bone carver says, where we came from, I do not believe it is now anything more than dust drifting across a plain. There's no home to return to, not one that I desire. So if he came from the world of Throne of Glass, what is this saying? That the world of Throne of Glass doesn't exist anymore? That's just me being a little crazy. But I'm just like, hello? If there's nothing to return to, and I think he came from Throne of Glass, explain. The bone carver also talks about the warrior that was able to bind the weaver into the middle so that she's confined to the middle. And he says that the warrior's bloodline is gone, but that a trace still runs through some human line. And I feel like this is going to be important at some point. But why would you be like, oh, well, the bloodline's kind of gone, but there's just a little trace in some human line? Okay, we're going to see that later, right? And I still want to know how the bone carver appeared to Cassian, because he's the only person that has seen the carver that, like, we've seen on page that has seen the carver that doesn't say, oh, the carver appeared to me as whatever. Unless it's said and I just completely missed it. So Elaine says that when she sleeps, she can hear Lucian's heartbeat through the stone. And I was just wondering, is that the only heartbeat she can hear? Can she hear everyone's heartbeat because she has Fey hearing now? She sleeps closest physically to Nesta, so she shouldn't be able to hear Lucian's heartbeat unless she can hear it because that's her mate. But I don't know. I just found that interesting. Azriel then takes Elaine to the garden. Lucian's like a little uncomfy. And Rhys says, don't worry, Azriel isn't the ravishing type. I hope he is. I hope he is. And I do not believe Rhys in saying that. But I'm like, ain't no way he's not the ravishing type. Come on now. After they talk a little bit about, like, why couldn't Azriel be Elaine's mate, which I'm not even gonna get into all that, but they're talking about that. And then it's mentioned that on the continent, there are some territories that believe the females literally belong to their mate. Now, why would this be said? Why are we talking about people on the continent if we're not on the continent? Is that going to be important later? I really, really don't like when Feyre goes into Lucian's mind and she's talking to Rhys about it and she's like, oh, I kind of feel a little bit guilty. And he says that she was entitled to look into his mind since he violated the rules that they set. That's bullshit. I get, like, the rule that they set was if he wants something from the library, he needs to ask someone and they'll go get it for him. He can't see Elaine. He went into the library, though, not knowing Elaine was there, and that's his mate. So, like Rhys would do the same thing. Rhys was, it just makes me angry because I'm just like, to say that she was entitled to look into his head and, like, see what he's feeling, I just think is kind of bullshit. Not kind of, it's definitely bullshit. Again, we have Rhys keeping secrets when he doesn't tell Mor, or anyone for that matter, that he called in Eris as a potential ally and, like, everything that happened with that. What does he stand to gain from not just telling her when it happens? What does he stand to gain from just being like, I have a hard time understanding it because I'm like, he can just tell her as it happens, be like, hey, just gonna let you know that this is gonna happen. Instead, he chooses to just spring it on everyone. Please make that make sense. And then at this point, he also didn't tell Feyre. So then Feyre is speaking into his mind directly, and he's not answering her. Nothing would piss me off more. If you have a direct line of communication to your partner and no one knows that you're speaking to each other, why ignore her? Moving on. I kind of want to know a little bit more about which High Lords have looked into the Ouroboros and what happened to them, just because I find that part pretty interesting. This is one of the few times that there's like the same names used across the different series. So Keir says, Lord Thanatos is having difficulties with his daughter again. He requires my assistance. Now, the only other character named Thanatos is from Crescent City. He's one of the 7 princes of hell. So is this the same person? Or is it just a coincidence? But I feel like that's such a specific name. We never see this character. He's just kind of off page, but I thought that was interesting. I feel like I have said this before, but several times throughout this book and the next 2 books, Eris says things along the lines of like, we don't have the whole story with all of the things that happen with Mor. He's going to get some type of redemption arc for sure. Like, I feel like it's kind of the same thing as Rhys. Like, you think Rhys is a bad guy until you actually like get to know him and you're like, oh, he's really not a bad guy. That's what I think Eris has going on. And then in this book, he says, there were forces at work that you have never considered. That's what he says to Mor when she's like, you left me in the woods. And he was like, there were forces at work that you have never considered. What could that possibly mean? And then he says, you know nothing about what happened that day. Nothing. So there's hints like there's more that happened that you just don't know yet. And when we eventually get that, I'm really interested to see what it is. Oh my gosh. So Amryn describes a rip appearing in the sky that she went through to end up in this world. So if she went through a tear in the sky, I would imagine that she would need the ability to fly. And it says that she was a soldier assassin for a wrathful god. Now, there's theories that this connects to Crescent City. I don't remember a ton about Crescent City, so when I read it again, I feel like it'll be like reading it for the first time, which will be fun. But yeah, I just thought that was a little like, When Feyre and Rhys are talking about like, well, what happens if the wall comes down and like what's going to happen during this war, and Feyre says that her and Rhys will offer sanctuary to any humans who could make it to Velaris when the wall falls. If you look at a map, Velaris is literally the furthest north. So if you're able to travel through all of the rest of Prithian without getting killed by someone else, you can have sanctuary in Velaris. Are you joking? Are you joking? I'm trying to open up the map. Unless they're planning, it's literally the furthest north. Unless you are planning on winnowing people in, if you're looking at the video version, it is literally all the way up top. Like there is nothing further north than the Night Court. Like, hello? I don't know. It just was like, oh really, how sweet of you. Unless you're going to actually winnow them in, there's no point. When Feyre is talking to Bryaxis tells Feyre that she once knew the Bone Carver before so many things crawled the earth. So Bryaxis and the Bone Carver must have come in to this world around the same time. And it just makes me wonder, with the Throne of Glass theory, spoilers for Throne of Glass, maybe skip ahead 30 seconds, a minute. If Bryaxis is Kaltain, then Kaltain and the Bone Carver could have come through from the same world. I don't know. I find it very interesting. So when they talk about Koshi, it says that Koshi has this onyx box that's more vital than anything. Okay. We don't know what that box is. Still don't know after completing Silver Flames. We do not know what that box is, but it has to be important. And then we also find out that he has other girls that he keeps. It wasn't just Vasa that he had. So I'm really interested to see more about this. We also never get Vasa's full name, which I feel like that could be important. And I don't know why, but that's just something that I felt. I don't know. So when Lucian offers to go to the human lands and he's like, I'm going to go get Vasa, he goes to leave. He does not turn to see Elaine again. And he wasn't able to see the half step that Elaine took toward the stairs as if she would speak to him, stop him. That's what it says in the book. Like, Elaine definitely feels drawn to him. And I think it scares her because she doesn't even want to be Faye to begin with. But that's her man. That is her man. I do not care. I do not think she ends up with Azriel. I just don't think that that's... No, absolutely not. On page 351, Seraphim Steel is described as living silver flame. And that is one of the few times that something is called silver flame, like, that's not associated with Nesta already. So, like, everything with Nesta, it's like her eyes were like silver flame, whatever. But to describe the Seraphim Steel as silver flame, interesting choice of words. At some point, Rhys is thinking to himself that one day he would want to erase Amarantha from every mind in this world. Now, I don't know if that's even a possibility, but the fact that that was said, and I was like, he has to have the power to be able to do that. He'd just have to, find everyone in the world who knows about Amarantha. But I just thought that was a choice. I get it. Obviously, it was traumatic, but like, to physically actually do it, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. When Feyre and Rhys are talking about the war, and she's like, you're not going to die in this war, Rhysand, that did not age well. That did not age well because, I mean, we know what happens. Okay. When Rhys and Feyre are looking at all of the pieces of the Night Court jewelry, this is what's said in this chapter. So this is chapter 41. It says, I'd heard of catacombs on the continent where skulls of beloved or infamous people were kept in little alcoves, dozens or hundreds of them to a wall. Now, this to me sounds like that scene in Throne of Glass, and I don't know if that's connected at all. I've seen people saying, like, if you take the map from ACOTAR and then the map of Throne of Glass, it basically looks like Throne of Glass. The world is like the continent in ACOTAR and like below that. So hold on one second. Because I gotta get the map out. So when you're looking at the Throne of Glass map, it kind of cuts off at the top and like you can't see what's above that. And then when you're looking at the ACOTAR map, specifically at the continent, it keeps going, you just don't see it. So I could totally see. Oh yeah, I could totally see if you like line them up together. Yeah. I feel like all this continent stuff is like the world of Throne of Glass. I think they take place at different points in time, but I could totally see that happening. When Rhys is talking about Thessian and his captain, like war captain / lover, he says that there's not a mating bond yet. Now, I want to know how long it would take for one to appear, just genuinely out of curiosity. Or if Thessian's actually mated to someone else. Who could he be mated to? I've got no clue. But I just thought that was interesting that there's no bond yet. Maybe that's not his mate. And maybe his mate has not been introduced yet, but I just thought that was interesting. When Feyre's talking about her dad being the Prince of Merchants, she says that he had once bought and traded this pendant from the ruins of an arid southeastern kingdom where the Fae had ruled as gods amid swaying date palms and sand-swept palaces. Does this not sound like Throne of Glass to you? More specifically, kind of like giving Tower of Dawn vibes? Is it just me, or am I going insane? Probably just going insane at this point. So when they're at the High Lord meeting and Rhys takes away Tamlin's ability to speak, how is that not violating this harming others with magic? but I guess he's not physically harming him with his magic. He's just using his magic against him. I don't know. That just felt like Rhys and Feyre can get around whatever rules exist. After Azriel beats Eris's ass for calling Mora a hoe, basically, he bends down and whispers something in Eris's ear, and I need to know what he said. And I feel like we'll find out eventually, but I was just like, what was he telling him? I need to talk about how Lucien was so sneaky with getting those samples to Nuon, like the Fabane samples, that Rhys and Feyre didn't even know that he did that. And he was like, oh, well, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to give you like false hope. But he fully walked around Velaris, grabbed the things he needed to grab, went over to Dawn, and like did his thing. I like how sneaky he is. He's definitely a fox. So Nuon says that she's the daughter of 2 high fae from Xian. Where is that? I'm assuming it's on the continent, but Baron's mother is also from Xian, and so is a large majority of Thessian's court. Thessian's court? I don't remember how to say his name, but where are they from? Like, what is that place? I need to know. So Feyre attacks Baron, sends water around him, and she creates a bubble with no air. So that's just the Night Court perpetuating this idea that they're violent because they're the only ones that are really acting out, but okay. And she says maybe she was able to get around the binding spell because she was made. It just doesn't make any sense to me because Rhys also used magic against Tamlin and Azriel. I think Azriel kind of found a way around it because he wasn't really using magic. He was using his shadows to like stop anyone else from interfering. I don't know. So Mora says that she heard Lucien's mom had waited to marry Baron because she had met someone at the Equinox Ball the year before. That someone was Helion. Could the Lady of Autumn be mated to Helion? Because that would make sense to me as to why they continued this affair for so long. And like, I don't think she's mated to Baron. I don't know. I don't know if it's ever said that Baron and the Lady of Autumn are mated, but I'm just like, could Helion be her mate? Like, I kind of love that for her. So when they're talking about Azriel's feelings for Mora, which honestly, every time we talk about this, it just makes me angry. I'm just like, I'm kind of sick of all this, but anyways, it says there will come a day when Azriel has to decide if he's going to fight for her or let her go. And it won't be because some other male insults her or beds her. So I think the reason he'll have to make the decision is because one of them has a mating bond to someone else. Bottom line, one of them is going to be mated to someone else. I think Azriel probably is going to end up with Gwen, and maybe Mor ends up with someone else, but like, I think that it's going to be a mating bond that makes them finally be like, okay, like this isn't happening. So when Feyre makes this bargain with Bryaxis, she says in exchange for Bryaxis fighting in the war, she says, we shall bring the sun and moon and stars to you in your home. I feel like there can be some type of loophole in there. It's not just putting a window in the library. I do think that there's a way for Bryaxis to get around this. And I'm just interested to see because at the end of this, we don't know where Bryaxis is. And throughout the rest of Silver Flames, we do not know where Bryaxis is. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. We then get to part 3, High Lady, and it's the first time that it's mentioned that Nesta is a witch. So Devlin asks her if she's a witch. She says yes. Immediately, she's like, yep, that's me. And Devlin seems to be able to sense, you know, when someone's other. Makes me wonder if he's other of some type, but I don't know if we'll ever find that out. So Mora explains the difference between like what makes someone a witch. I guess not the difference between, but she explains what makes someone a witch. And she says witches amass power beyond their natural reserve. I'd say that's fitting to Nesta. They use spells and archaic tools to harness more power to them than the cauldron allotted and use it for whatever they desire, good or ill. can we make the argument that Nesta is for sure a witch by that definition? Spells and archaic tools. That's what I'm more like. She uses the trove. Obviously, at this point in time of the book, like, we don't know that, but reading Silver Flames, you know she uses the trove, so I don't know if she can be a queen and also be a witch, but I mean, I guess so. Why not? Yeah, like, why not? But I do think that she's gonna be a queen more so than this whole witch thing. So when they go to the human lands, Rhys winnows them, and more winnows Azriel and Cassian. Again, Azriel can winnow. I don't know, like, he literally winnowed Lucien a few chapters ago. So I'm just not understanding why Azriel's like selective with when he's winnowing. I don't know if it's a distance thing. Moving back to Nesta and the theory that maybe she's an Iron Teeth witch, they're talking about Grayson, and Feyre says, I'd leave Nesta to shred him. Indeed, my eldest sister's fingers had curled as if invisible talons crowned them. Now, that's said several times that, like, she's got talons for fingers, that kind of thing. I feel like that could potentially be a connection to the Iron Teeth witches, perhaps. Okay, let's talk about Jurian real quick. I think he's other. I think he might be Fae, or he's something. He's not a human anymore. You can't tell me that he's human because he was kept alive for 500 years and then was brought back. I don't think he's human. This is going to be the 4th time that Nesta is referred to as a queen. It said, and proud as any queen, Nesta took Elaine's arm and led her from the guardhouse. This is when they're leaving Grayson's manor. But again, just these casual mentions of she's like a queen. This can't be like accidental. So when they're preparing to go into battle, it's described that Rhys, Azriel, and Cassian wear these black helmets whose cheek guards have been fashioned and swept upward like ravens' wings. I need to see more fan art of them in these helmets. I don't know why, but just like, I need to see this. So if you have any fan art or you know of any fan art where Rhys, Azriel, and Cassian are in their full war getup with the Raven's Wings helmets, please share it with the class. Okay, a couple things from this one quote in the book. So it said, this is Feyre talking, I'd never seen anything like it. This is her thinking, actually, not talking, but this is Feyre thinking. I'd never seen anything like it. The skill and precision. It was a dance. And then she says, I must have said it aloud because Mor replied. For him, that's what battle is, a symphony. So 2 things. 1, battle being like a dance to Cassian and how much Nesta enjoys dancing. I don't know if that was just a coincidence, but it just felt kind of like, aw, get cute. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was cute. That like this thing that means so much to him is like a dance, and dance means so much to Nesta, and they're in love. And then 2, I think Mor is Daemati or has some kind of power to read minds, because the I must have said it aloud, be so serious. No, you didn't. And you know you didn't. And this happened several times where it's like, oh, I must have said it aloud. No, you didn't. So I just think that there's more. There's more there with Mor. And then Cassian is compared to an Elias. Anyways, the ancient warrior god, and he's the first of the Illyrians. And then he's also referred to as other. Like, he's so powerful, he's something other. And capital O on that. So I feel like that has to mean something in his, like, power match with Nesta. Elaine's mind. So the walls of her mind are described as solid iron. So we're starting with that. Covered in sleeping buds, tucked into tangles of leaves and thorns. It's giving spring court. It's definitely giving spring court. I've seen people be like, oh, she's mated to Tamlin. I don't think she's mated to Tamlin, and that like Lucien just lied about that. I don't think so. I think that I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen that Tamlin's going to essentially give over the spring court to Lucian, and then Elaine would then be the lady or high lady of the spring court, because she has all these references to spring, but she's not. No way she ends up with Tamlin, because Sarah J. Maas has literally said, like, he's probably not going to get a redemption arc. So there's no way. But I just found that interesting. When the Suriel's dying, the Suriel has black blood. And I don't know if it's just creatures, like other creatures have black blood. Throne of Glass has scarred me. Like, there's only one reason for you to have black blood. And I don't know what that means for the Suriel. I believe the Weaver also had black blood. The Naga have black blood. I don't know. Coming back to more, I do not believe that her gift is just truth. Like, I genuinely do not believe that. Amren had said, like, be careful of how you push her. There are some truths that even Morrigan has not herself faced. I don't understand her power in general, but I don't understand how her power can be truth, but she lies pretty frequently, and I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. When Nesta is trying to scry for the first time, it says that each stone had a thin, reedy letter on it that Feyre didn't recognize. Maybe some kind of ancient Fey language, or I don't know, perhaps some word marks. That's what I'm thinking. And then, the gates to Nesta's mind are described. So if Elaine's metal gates were those of a sleeping garden, Nesta's, they belonged to an ancient fortress, sharp and brutal. The sort I imagine they once impaled people upon. I just thought it was very interesting to see the comparison between Nesta and Elaine. In chapter 64, I'm pretty sure this is a direct quote from Throne of Glass, but Rhys says, "You do not fear, you do not falter, you do not yield." Then he says, you go in, you get her, and you come out again. That's what he's talking about. I'm pretty sure getting Elaine. But do they not say that in Throne of Glass? That exact thing. You do not fear, you do not falter, you do not yield. That can't be a coincidence. Moving to when they tried to rescue Elaine, how was Jurian able to recognize Feyre so quickly? I know I talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but he takes one look at her, looks up at the siphon on her head in place of the stone that they usually wear, and then was like, "Oh, hey, Feyre girl, what's up? So your sister's over here." And I'm like, he has to be other of some type to be able to sense that, because to just be like, "Oh, yep, that's not Ianthe," I don't believe that for a second. And this is one of the few other times that we get the same name twice. So this is the girl in the Hybern camp who they're like torturing. Her name is Briar. Now, the only other place that we see the name Briar is one of the 13 in Throne of Glass. Her name is Briar. So I was just like, could this be the same person? Is this a coincidence? I don't know. And I know I mentioned earlier what Azriel smells like. Nesta's scent is described as fire and steel and unbending will. What does an unbending will smell like? I wish I could tell you, but that is just the description that we get. Okay, a little out there, I think, but so Feyre says that she's never seen Tamlin use a power like the one that he used to send this spring-scented wind to fill her wings so that they could escape Hybern. So, two things here. One, he barely had any power when she was spending time with them. So it makes sense that she's never seen him use a power like that, because he wouldn't really need to use a power like that. And she didn't really see him have his full powers. I mean, I guess she did after Under the Mountain, but like, what would he have a use for that type of power? Or could it be that it was someone else's power, like Jurian or Elaine? Now, the only reason I say Elaine is because Elaine is described as having all these spring-like things, the garden, whatever, and it was a spring-scented wind. So I'm like, maybe Elaine didn't know that she used that power, but she did, or Jurian has some kind of powers and he did it. I don't know. Again, with Mor being some type of mind reader, Daemati, whatever it is, but it says Mor seemed to read what I was thinking and said, better than being dead. So she was responding to Feyre's internal thoughts. And I do not think that this is, like, I don't think that Mor doesn't have the ability. Like, I think she for sure has the ability to read minds in some capacity. And I cannot stand the way that they use Mor to manipulate Azriel. It's like he's been wanting to fight in this war. He only stops when Mor goes into his tent, begs him with tears in her eyes to not fight. And then at that point, he's like, okay, I won't. They know in sending Mor in there that that's the only thing that'll stop him. And I just think that's really shitty. Speaking of being shitty, again with Rhys keeping secrets, that he sent Helion to go bargain on his behalf with the Weaver. And it's like, I guess you can argue that Feyre is also keeping secrets, but her and Rhys are keeping secrets from each other, from everyone else in the inner circle. And it's just causing unnecessary problems. But she's like, oh, the mating gift that she got him was the Bone Carver and Bryaxis. And he's like, oh, well, I got one too. That's why Helion found you in the woods that day. I want to know the logistics for Helion going and bargaining on Rhys's behalf. Does Helion get the bargain tattoo? No, I think Rhys gets it because he shows it to her. I just want to know how that works, how you're able to bargain for someone else. When the Bone Carver died, Feyre wonders, she's like, who would carve his death in the prison? And I really wonder if someone new is going to start carving deaths or if no one's ever going to do it. I just thought that was like, I don't know. It just kind of stuck with me. And then after this whole thing, well, I guess not after. This might be before. Like the really big battle is starting. No. Sorry. This is when Dracon and Miriam pull up. So this is like during battle. And Dracon is like, oh, we have this glamour to make it look like the city's in ruin, whatever. And then he says it's, quote, tied to, and then it says, so that anyone who approached would only see a ruin and be inclined to turn around. This is in chapter 71, if you wanted to go check it out for yourself. But he then winks at Rhys. So it's tied to what? I think Rhys knows that they have the fourth piece of the trove, but he's just choosing to not say anything. Very on brand for him. But I do think that Rhys has some kind of clue what it is, because what else would the glamour be tied to? Nesta says several times, but it starts really in Wings and Ruin. But Nesta says several times to Rhys, you are not my High Lord. And never does he go, yes, I am. Like, he doesn't get into that, like, back and forth with her. And he also doesn't, like, reprimand her. Like, she says, you are not my High Lord. And we just move on every single time. It's said several times throughout Silver Flames as well. I want to know, then who is her High Lord? Or does she not have one? I just thought that was so interesting that she was like, you're not my High Lord. You literally cannot tell me what to do. Yes, put him in his place. I don't know why, but to me it felt a little anticlimactic when we finally get to see Rhys's animal form. It's the same creatures that are carved into the rock in the Court of Nightmares, and I don't know why I just wasn't expecting that. I don't know. So when Amryn is released back into her original form to, like, wreak havoc on Hybern's armies, she's described basically like a firebird. And I wonder if that's what she looked like before, or if that's what she was at, like, her purest form. I don't know. And then when the cauldron breaks apart and there's this big void, why the fuck does Feyre throw the Book of Breathings into the cauldron? Why? What does she think that's going to do? And then does her throwing the book into the cauldron, is that what causes it to end up in Crescent City? Because the Book of Breathings is in Crescent City. Food for thought. After Rhys dies and is brought back to life, the first thing he says is, you lot will be pleased to know, my power remains my own. No thieving here. The first thing he says when he opens his eyes is like, oh, by the way, your power brought me back, but, like, I don't have any of your power. I don't believe him. I genuinely do not believe him. And I think he doesn't want a target on his back for having a piece of their power. But at this point, they all gave the power willingly, knowing that when they gave the power to Feyre, they lost that bit of power and Feyre got that power. So I just thought that was super suspicious. And then after all that, he says to Feyre, stay with the High Lord. How did he know that the Suriel told her that? I'm not sure. And then I was thinking maybe he saw the Suriel in this, like, in between when he was dead. I don't know. I talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but when Lucian comes running through the battlefield just to check on Elaine and make sure she's okay, I love this man so much. Like, I literally cannot contain my love for him. It's kind of crazy. And I also want to know more about this deal with Papa Archeron and Koshi, because what happens when you have a bargain with someone and then the other person dies? Is that the bargain doesn't exist anymore? Is Vasa now off the hook? I kind of want to know a little bit more about that. So in chapter 80, I think this is Elaine talking about like, oh, what now? What are we going to do now? And she's like, oh, I want to grow my garden, right? So it says that smile grew bright enough that it lit up even Azriel's shadows across the room. She says, I would like to build a garden. After all of this, I think the world needs more gardens. First of all, what kind of crack is Elaine smoking? Because that's fucking crazy. The world needs more gardens. Girl, how about... Let me stop. And then secondly, the theory that I've seen that Elaine cannot be Azriel's mate if his shadows don't thrive around her. Whenever she's around, his shadows kind of go away. And I've seen people argue like that's a good thing. But I've just seen also that if his shadows are like shrinking around her, it's because he's not like comfortable around her or something like that. But I just found that interesting. The last thing we're going to talk about today is the bargain that Feyre and Rhys make to die together. I think this is so stupid. In the sense that one, like, they are the leaders of this entire territory. Like, they need to, and they don't have any heirs. So they kind of need to establish that first. Like, if they had at least one kid and they were like, okay, well, you know, when he comes of age, then we'll die together. So then, which traumatic for your child. Hello. And then also, I get it. Like, I get it. I want to go before my husband does because I don't want to live my life without that man. But also, I don't know. I get not wanting to leave the other person to like suffer through all that. That seems to be the argument for Feyre and Rhys, but like they have responsibilities. They got things going on. And I just was like, this is going to complicate their lives so much. And then obviously we see how complicated their lives get because of that. But I was like, as soon as it happened, I was like, this is not going to end well. But so that is going to wrap up everything that stuck out to me in A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have made it this far, what is the emoji that we're going to do today? You know what? Today we're going to do the fox emoji. So if you want to comment the fox emoji on my most recent Instagram post at bestfriend.bookclub, or if you want to just DM me a fox so that I know you listen all the way, it really means so much to me. Whoa. It really means so much to me that you spent this time with me, and I'm just so happy we were able to chit chat. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at bestfriend.bookclub for the podcast, or at simply serotonin for my more like book account, lifestyle, that sort of thing. You can watch the video versions on YouTube at bestfriend.bookclub, and I'm on TikTok at bestfriend.bookclub. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.